Hello, thank you for joining us today for our talk on how to practice AI implementation in a psychologically safe space. I'm Scott Thompson. I'm Managing Director of Business Simulations. Business Simulations is an experiential learning company. We've been developing simulations for over 20 years. Our simulations are designed to accelerate leadership development, to improve core management capabilities, and to push individuals and teams outside their comfort zone by letting them practice and learn by doing through simulation. We've been working over those 20 years in both the public and the private sector, designing, developing, and delivering experiential learning. Today, we're going to give you a little taste of that and how we feel that AI implementation is best practiced before put into practical use. And we're going to do that through playing a micro simulation. As well as that, we're going to cover some thoughts we have around change management and how AI implementation is really a change project. So I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about experiential learning and psychological safety and what that really means. So psychological safety, I'm going to share the definition here on screen, as you can see. And what that really means is making people comfortable through learning to try things, to make mistakes, to speak up, and really ultimately to learn from this. We find as a business that learning from doing and learning by making mistakes is one of the best forms of learning. Experiential learning in itself is a very, very valuable tool. We specialize in simulations, but experiential learning comes in many, many different forms, and we'd encourage everyone to embrace and to look at how you can make your learning delivery as experiential as possible, whether that's through simulation or any other form. So today, while this is a recorded video, we are looking to practice what we preach and to make this as an experiential experience as possible. So we'd like you folk to play along and to try and get involved. And there is, I believe, a chat feature that accompanies this video. Feel free to ask any questions. My team will be here, joining me as well to answer your questions. So at this point, I'm going to introduce my colleagues who are joining us for this call. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Tom Parsons, who is our head of delivery and leads our facilitation team at Business Simulations.
Thanks, Scott. It is really, really insightful from yourself, and it's really important to operate in a psychologically safe environment, particularly when you get to experience the learning firsthand, take risks, operate with others, and become a better leader. But next, we are going to explore with Margit why she and us at Business Simulations believes that AI implementation is not just a process. It is also about the people, and at its heart, it is a change management issue. So Margit, if you could tell us a little bit more about why you believe AI implementation is a change management issue, I would love that.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to join you for this fireside chat. My name is Margit Takacs, and I'm a change management consultant, trainer, and coach. I have been working with senior leaders on how to navigate complex transformations in different companies, in corporate and not-for-profit organizations, and finding an opportunity to engage them in really serious play and deep learning with the business simulations has been an eye-opening and a great experience. And that's why I'm happy to be here today.
Oh, brilliant, Margit. That's really nice to hear. So, Margit, why do you believe, and why do we share in the belief with you that AI adoption, it's a big challenge across any industry at the moment. Why is it that AI adoption is actually a change management issue?
If you ask me, AI adoption is not only a technical challenge, and we talk a lot about the technological side of it, but it is a change management issue. A lot of organizations I'm in touch with, they underestimate that AI reshapes the way we make decisions, the way we keep people accountable, how we even appreciate or not the expertise of people. And the whole AI adoption triggers a very important identical question for a lot of leaders, a lot of professionals, because they wonder where and how they can truly contribute and be valued. And for that reason, I see that it has both the technical, and the human element that we have to consider.
Absolutely. And Margit, you helped us co-author an AI influence simulation where we had to get 10 stakeholders on board when it comes to AI adoption in the workplace. And with Margit's subject matter expertise, we've also developed what we call a micro simulation. So a micro simulation is a 2-minute short exercise that you can play as an individual, where you will be able to test your skills when it comes to understanding AI adoption as a change management process. So, what do you see as a key challenge for leaders today when it comes to AI adoption?
I believe that most leaders accept that resistance is natural, it's part of human nature, but they don't really recognize that most of the people don't resist the technology, the innovation, but they resist the fact that it's uncertain and they have a lot of fear, a fear of loss, a fear of loss of face, of title, of authority, of expertise. And I see a lot of organizations where the leaders over focus on the systems and they don't really give time. They underinvest into the dialogue they need to have with employees. And it's not about making every employee happy about AI changing the way they work, but making them understand where it's coming from and what it means for them.
I think that's a really interesting topic that you bring up. A lot of it comes down to understanding. There's a lot of fear when it comes to, is AI going to take over my job? Is AI going to change the way we work? And of course, it's going to change the way we work. But why does that mean we need to work better together as staff and as leaders and as bosses? Why do we need to be able to adopt this AI trend and change and use good change management practices to put that in place?
Well said, absolutely agreed. I think that when we talk about AI adoption, it really depends on whether there's a clarity about where we are heading, the vision of the leader and the organization, and also whether we see our sponsors or leaders, they are visible and actively involved in it. If not, then it will fall apart.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's something that we've developed along with you as our subject matter expert, Market. And it's something that we at Business Simulations call a micro simulation. So typically a simulation is played in teams. We play it over a half day, a full day, or multiple days. But we've decided to dip our toes into little single task micro simulations where you, as an individual, a practitioner, a leader, can test yourself against different sort of change implementation processes around AI adoption. So, Margaret, I think what would be really exciting and interesting would be for us to invite those who are watching this to play along with us in this micro simulation. So you'll see a QR code on your screen and a short link. If you type that into your browser or your phone, you will be able to play along this micro simulation with us. So, Margaret, what I'll do is I'll take us through the micro simulation, but I'm going to prompt and ask you some questions about why would people do certain things? What are common trends that we always see? How does that sound?
That sounds really good.
Brilliant. So this micro simulation is all about AI adoption. Of course, we've laid the premise that AI adoption is actually a change management issue. You need to be able to understand and influence your stakeholders. And throughout this micro simulation, you're going to make some decisions that reflect what it would actually be like to assist with this in the workplace. So as an individual, you will be taking part of an organization called Netbox. So it is a fast-growing streaming business with an AI problem. Across the company, teams have been adopting AI tools on their own. No standards, no oversight, no paper trail. Some teams could be using ChatGPT. Some teams could be using Copilot. Some teams using Claude. Maybe they're using it on their personal devices to help them with work. This, of course, comes with many inherent risks and is why regulated AI adoption is necessary in the workplace. So, of course, the legal and reputational exposure is mounting. The business has decided to act. An AI governance office is being set up, and you, the person playing the microsim, the participant, or myself and Margit, as we take this through today, we've been brought in to lead this change. It does sound straightforward, but it isn't. Key stakeholders have competing priorities. Some have serious reservations, and you cannot force change on people who do not want it. And I find this is something, Margit, that you can definitely weigh in on also, is that change is difficult and change is always ongoing. So why is it that we need to make sure that we get stakeholders on board when it comes to change?
I believe sometimes we have the urge to act. We want to be really fast with getting people on board, and we don't recognize that when it comes to influencing, we first need to get people to be aware of what's coming and understand what they think about it. In the trust cycle, we advocate in our programs. We always say, first build that connection, get the insights of the people to find out what would trigger a bit of curiosity and interest for them to listen to us and to do what's required. I think that's the reason, one of the reasons why it's so important to pause and even through micro simulations of 2 minutes, get a taster of how our urge to act sometimes hinders our ability to get people on board.
Absolutely. I completely agree. So we then have to think about how we engage, what we're bringing on board, what do we prioritize? It's very like the real world. Think with your real world hat, with your job. Imagine this is your organization and you as a leader are helping implement this change. Step in with that mindset, have fun and enjoy the micro simulation, and hopefully you'll learn a little bit alongside us also. So Margit, we have 3 decisions. It can be played in 2 minutes, but we'll take a little bit longer just so we can talk about the theory and the ideas behind the micro simulation. And we get to find out what kind of change leader we are. So when we start the simulation, we get our first task. We have to prioritize our stakeholders. We're leading the rollout of the AI governance office. And before we begin engaging with the organization, we need to decide who to speak to. It's just like the real world. We have stakeholders we talk to. We go into the office, who's influential, who's not. So we need to rank the stakeholders in order that we would engage with them. Imagine it's the real world. Place the person you would approach first at the top, and a little hint, think about their seniority, their reputation. How connected are they across the organization? And what's their attitude towards the project? So Margit, I have a question for you. When it comes to understanding stakeholders, understanding why a stakeholder is influential or important, what do you commonly see when you work with organizations who haven't had any change training?
Almost all the time, people want to start with the big bosses above. And that's okay because they have a formal authority. We call them structural influencers. But they are not the only ones who can move the trigger towards a change adoption. And I think often they forget about the people who I like calling tribal chiefs, who are opinion leaders, and they might not hold the best titles, but somehow people gravitate to them. People seek their attention, their insights, their input at the water cooler or at the cafeteria and the canteen. They would be approached and they would ask, "So, what do you think about that?" And if we don't take time to build connection with them, I believe we lose a lot in terms of the ability to get other people on board.
Yeah, I think it's something that is so commonly overlooked. People think, oh, well, my boss is my boss. They're in charge, get them on board. And of course, as you said, that is important. But sometimes we don't think about people who we need to get on board, and sometimes people who we need to prevent from derailing the change. I mean, how common is it, Margit, to see senior stakeholders, those who are maybe entrenched with an organization or are new in with different ideas, becoming a resistor to the change? And how would we deal with that?
I don't have a clear percentage, but I have a message to those who are asking themselves this question. Remember that those people up above, they are human as well. So they go through that emotional cycle of denying a change is coming, resisting it, and eventually exploring and driving it. It's okay. And we need to recognize that they have their own fears and concerns that holds them back. It is not ideal if the senior leaders that we are looking up to resist it, if they are opponent, because we are looking up for guidance and reassurance, and the senior sponsors have a huge role in that. But we need to cut some slack as well and give them time to get on board. And we might not functionally, authority wise, influence them, but by listening to them, finding out what holds them back, by making sure they understood their concerns are acknowledged, I believe we can keep the doors open to them and eventually bring them on board. Sometimes those leaders up above in the hierarchy listen to the opinion leaders, the tribal chiefs at the next levels. So if there are more people positively talking about the change we want to drive, they will listen as well. So both baskets are baskets that we need to put our energy and ideas into when it comes to getting to convincing people to come on board.
Absolutely. I think that it's something that I always find so interesting when it comes to organizational change. And when we introduce this additional concept of AI adoption, there's so much going on, so much can get lost. Sometimes you just have to cut people some slack, make sure they feel valued and listened to. So that's a really, really good insight, Margaret. Thank you so much. So the way that we make our decisions is we can just drag and drop. We can reorder all of these stakeholders. We can see who they report to, what's their seniority and their concerns. So as an individual, take some time to do this first step. And once you've completed this first step, you're going to hit the submit button. Once we hit the submit button, we're going to see that, as you mentioned earlier, Margit, when it comes to prioritizing stakeholders, there's never a single correct answer, but there is sometimes sort of frameworks, ideas that we can follow. And as you can see, experienced practitioners, they weigh these factors differently. And when we look at the things to consider, as you mentioned previously, Diane, when we look at her bio, she is right at the top of the food chain. She's a tribal chief, to use your language. It's of course going to be important to involve her, but her limited availability means investing too much time might have diminished returns. But if we look at Andre, do you think Andre is quite an interesting character? And how would you, as a change practitioner, Margit, how would you help influence someone like Andre? They're new to the organization, but they're an opponent. They have reservations. He thinks it's going to affect his work. He thinks it's going to affect the sales pipeline in his team. How would you engage with Andre to make him feel more supported?
I'd like to first differentiate between Diane and Andre. In the organizational structure, they are more or less at the same level. Diane is somewhat open, but very limited with time. So we want to make sure that we give her a legitimacy and we secure their early sponsorship. But we should not ask her for too much because she won't be able to dedicate time that we might want from others. And for that reason, knowing Andre's background on sales marketing and how he's against it, he would be not just a tribal chief to me, but a sponsor, a senior sponsor I definitely need to win over. He is a high profile opponent in my eyes, and definitely someone we should not ignore. Because if a high opponent, high level opponent is heard by many others in the organization, they will listen to him, and that creates more negative buzz in the organization that we cannot afford us to have. I think the fact that he has seniority, it means that if he is against our project, the AI adoption, it will spread very quickly. So in this case, I would definitely say Diane would be easy to, right at the beginning, engage at a minimal level just to make sure we secure her sponsorship. But Andre, I would also do at the very beginning, and I would spend more time with him and possibly not just telling him why the AI adoption is so important, but first finding out what holds him back, what we call the insights, and building this good rapport. I would acknowledge the concerns he has, and I would really listen to what he could possibly expect, would like to see from the AI governance structure.
Absolutely. And it's really interesting there because most people know that organizational power is a thing. Pretty much every organization has staff. They have line managers, they have bosses, directors, VPs, all the way up to the executive level. But is that organizational power all we have to worry about?
No, definitely not. So we need to make sure that that is well in place, that is strong. But at the same time, we also build these positive words, these positive rumors from other parts of the organization. We need both.
Absolutely. And that's where Frank steps in. Frank, he is junior, he's a report to Andre, but he's the guy that gets things done. We all know in our workplaces, we've got a friend, a colleague. They're not senior in the organization, but people do listen to them. They're able to influence others around them. So it is important to always remember that there is social power as well as organizational. So as an individual, you can look through the stakeholder prioritization, read a little bit more about these 5 stakeholders, think about the decisions you made with your first set of decisions, and we move on to then decision number 2. So talking about Andre, we have a meeting with him, the head of sales and marketing. So we've arranged a meeting with Andre to discuss his concerns about the AI governance office. He's been a vocal opponent, and you know this conversation matters. He's relatively new to the organization, so you have little existing relationship to draw on. This is only your second time speaking one-to-one. So some valuable information that we've managed to put into that short little bio about Andre. Hopefully you're able to think a little bit about him and how he operates and how you may need to operate with him. And he tells you that sales and marketing runs on speed. They are trying to move people through the pipeline. They experiment, they learn, and they move. If the governance office starts inserting itself into every decision they make around AI, they will lose their competitive edge. They have campaigns in flight, tools that his team depends on, and targets he's being held accountable to. He can't have regulation and red tape slowing down the innovative nature of sales and marketing. It's a compelling argument, isn't it, Margit?
Absolutely, it is. And often I think we resort to this kind of arguments. Maybe too early.
Yeah, and I think so. And I think it's really interesting that we have 4 different conversation choices here. And we won't spoil too much. We won't go into why one of them is maybe better than the others. But when I read through these, I really believe that in the real world, if this was me, I was having a conversation with Andre, there's merit to all 4 of these answers.
Yeah,
Then
absolutely.
logically, you feel like you could talk about any one of these 4. But when we just choose one at random, so as not to influence the decision of those playing along, and we move across, we see that is there really a best practice here, Margit, when it comes to influencing senior stakeholders? Earlier, you mentioned the trust cycle. Would you like to expand a little bit more about that theory?
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, we need to remember that Andre is a human too. He has desires and wishes, and he has an agenda for his part of the business. As you mentioned, he's somewhat new, so he wants to leave his mark early with a success, and it's really important to be able to recognize that. So before in real life, I would do anything with Andre, I would do my best to get to know information that's not written on paper about him. find out from his team members what he values the most, what is his style, because understanding his personal preferences and what kind of communication he appreciates would help me really alter the way I'm going to approach him. To give you an example, if someone is a very much a strong, dominant driver kind of a leader, I know I will not talk about long stories and long-winded examples, but I would get to the chase as soon as possible. So I would alter also not just what I say, but also how I say it. In the trust cycle, we have different phases. The first one is we encourage people to first build a rapport with the other one to see if you have the chemistry. And one way to do that is to take time to talk with them, not just about shop, but about life in general and their outlook on different topics. And as we warm up to that discussion, and if they allow us to do that, then to get some insights and really connect properly with them. I'd like to put forward the fact that I believe not everyone is blessed to be able to connect with everyone and have a really good trust and rapporting relationship. But if you feel that with your Andres in your organization, you don't have the chemistry for whatever reason, think about who else in your circle could talk with the Andre of your organization to get those insights and relationships, which we suggest always in the trust cycle as the first component to be able to engage stakeholders. The second one is understanding their concerns. And that's why I like option B that you can see on the screen as well. Acknowledge his concerns, because if he feels understood, we will be able to find a common basis to start influencing him. And as Stephen Covey's principle from the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, it's really important for all of us to seek first to understand the other and then to be understood. I think the same applies for the second stage of the trust cycle. The third stage is about commitment, getting commitment even for micro actions from Andre. In this case, for example, based on the micro simulations description, I would ask him what are his concerns, make sure he understands that I acknowledge them, and ask him for a small commitment, maybe even to meet in 2-3 days for another 30-minute discussion so that I can bring back the counter arguments or the elements of the project proposal that would address these issues. And last but not least, once we've got this micro commitment, the third stage of the trust cycle, we can ask for more and hopefully he will offer more. But and there is another element in the trust cycle, which is not forgetting about them. Just because we got them on board, got Andre on board once, it doesn't mean in 2 weeks' time he will still be on board. So we'll have to nurture that relationship, support them. And if they have other issues, if they have other ideas, we incorporate that. And that cycle continues moving forward.
That's incredibly insightful, Margit. I think that something that always stands testament is how, when we get the privilege of working with subject matter experts like yourself, we get a deep dive into these frameworks, the workings behind why we do things, why should we do things, how do we change ourselves to be a better leader? And is it something as simple as following a 4-step process? And I believe it can be. But that was very, very insightful, Margit. Thank you so much.
If I may, Tom, I wanted to take a moment to look at option C and D, because you
Absolutely.
beautifully put all four have merit. But I see a bit of more danger around option C and D at this phase of our stakeholder relationship with Andre, because option C is really, when we talk about the risk associated with the competitors, it somehow gives a threat factor to the discussion. And we don't yet have that rapport with Andre to be able to tell him, if we don't do this, we're going to lose market share and the competitors will outperform us. And that can really create a defensive mechanism, I think, in our stakeholders. Doesn't mean option C is never a solution, but not at this phase, I would say. Option D, I felt when we go into the what and the how of the governance, the AI governance framework, it would somehow project a bit like, I know it better. And I think we would not consider how we, all of us humans, we need that trust cycle to be in place, to have that connection with the other one, to be able to open up, to tell them what holds us back. And then eventually, I trust coming on board.
100% Margit. I think that's really useful to help the participants who are playing this microsim get a bit of a breakdown as to why you may or may not want to. Because as you mentioned, option C and D, they can be valuable, but they have to be utilized at the correct stage of the process. We move on to the final decision. And now we have to prioritize. As a leader, as a decision maker, sometimes we have to make decisions that are difficult and with imperfect information. We are ready to begin implementing the AI governance office, but pressure is coming from multiple directions. Change is never easy. An external consultant has identified gaps in documentation, consent records, and audit trails across several departments. Key stakeholders still remain opposed to the project. Unplanned costs are being flagged, and Diane, the senior vice president, wants to see progress, but her time to engage is limited. We can't do everything at once. Just like the real world, we wish we had as much time in the day as it needed to fulfill our work obligations. But sometimes as a leader, we have to make a difficult decision and prioritize. So take some time now, if you're still playing along with the microsim in line with us, to make your choice, read through which option you think you would prioritize. But Margit, I think I would like to come back to you about this. How do you find it in the workplace, in the real world, when it comes to helping leaders understand decision-making processes, when they've got competing priorities, they want to please their boss, they need to make sure that they don't go over budget, they need to make sure they stay legal. How are you supposed to balance all of this? Who can we talk to? What support do we have?
I do believe that securing the sponsorship of the top leaders is really important, and not just securing it, but making sure that they are active and they are seen as part of the leadership for that change. Why? Because a lot of people, according to a lot of researches as well from ProSci and other sources, it's proven that they are looking for the overarching rationale to be explained and role modeled by the top leaders. But I believe it's also important to not forget the middle management, because if the managers, the supervisors, they are not on board or they don't know what's happening, they can misinform, even misguide the people. Research shows that employees want to know about the big picture from the top leaders, but about the personal impact, what it means for them from their direct managers. So it's important to talk to the top to get their buy-in, but also the middle, because if we get the middle as well, the Franks of the world that you could see in the previous slide, then we are able to really cascade that positive outlook, even for an uncertain future with a change like AI adoption.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating when it comes to thinking about AI. People just go AI, AI, AI. It's the buzzword, it's the keyword. But when we sit down and we break it into these nice categories, as you've helped show us today, Margit, really implementation of AI in the workplace is not just process and technical. It's all about the people behind it. The people need to be influenced by the leaders. You need to become that change champion in your organization. So you will make your final decision, you will hit submit, and you get to see the priority of these four areas. And once again, as we mentioned, and as we keep seeing, change is hard. All four options have their own legitimacies. We don't need to spend too much time on this section, but just one point I would like to bring you back to, Margit, that I thought was really insightful from yourself. And it was talking about not just getting Diane on board, not just getting the senior stakeholders, but getting the staff on board. I mean, you're one person sometimes in an organization driving the change. How could you go about gaining the support of those around you, those who you can't directly talk to?
I think that's where the question of influence versus interest comes on board, because we need to prioritize senior and not senior stakeholders to really work with. And when you find that there is a stakeholder, a colleague, a leader who is very influential, not just by title, but you know that his or her opinion shapes how the rest thinks, you should definitely prioritize them. And if they are not interested in what you want to say, it's okay. In that case, just keep them satisfied. So, for example, if a senior stakeholder has the biggest issue about the budget a project would take, make sure that you get back to them about what clarity you can bring about the budget and what assurance, but don't worry about them too much. If you have someone who is excited and really want to be at the forefront, but in all fairness, no one is paying attention to them, just keep them informed. Make sure that they know what's going on, but don't spend a long time meeting them, not yet at least, and focus most on the people who have that formal or informal power, influence, and also whether they are interested. Because senior or not, those are the people that we have to manage closely.
100%. I mean, Margit, it's been an absolute pleasure being able to go through the micro simulation with someone of your expertise and caliber. And when you finish the micro simulation, if you completed it within the 2 minutes or if you played along with us, you will get your score. You'll be able to share this result on LinkedIn if you wish, see how you stack up in comparison to others who have played the micro simulation. You can follow us and Margit, of course, on LinkedIn. Margit, just before we wrap up, I have one question for you. What would be your top 3 tips to anyone who is experiencing change, particularly when it comes to AI adoption?
The first one would be about making sure that the purpose behind implementing an AI governance is clear. It's not just because everyone is already using it, but what's the business rationale behind wanting to have a governance office, a governance in general? Because if AI initiatives connect to the bigger picture, it's much more sustainable. The second one would be about making trust building, insights, and relationship a priority. Because if we communicate clearly, often, and we are transparent even about our challenges, people will stay with us. So making trust would definitely be the second one. And the third one is never forget your tribal chiefs and find your early successes, because those quick wins can really create a momentum. So just to recap, make sure that the business sees how AI fits into the big picture. You make trust building a priority and you build success stories with the tribal chiefs. And not a tip, but a food for thought is for each and every of us in today's world. I think we need to remember to ask the question, what will AI do and what will I do? So that those fears and confusions can disappear, hopefully soon.
Thanks, Tom, and thanks, Margit. That was really, really insightful. And thank you to those that played along. Hopefully, you found that a valuable exercise. There was certainly lots to be taken away from it. So this is just an example of a micro simulation. Generally, our simulations last a lot longer than this, but it should hopefully have given you a flavour of this medium of learning. So if you'd like to know more about the simulations that we offer, and we cover a wide range of topics, you can find out more on our website, or you can follow us on LinkedIn. If you scan this QR code on screen, you can follow us. And as well, Margit is one of our expert facilitators. If you'd like to give her a follow on LinkedIn, that QR code will take you there, and there's our website as well. So to sum up, really appreciate you spending your time with us today. We hope you find it a useful use of your time, and that we'll be seeing you using business simulations in the future. Thank you.